How is everyone this morning? An amazing day in Splitters Creek. Thank you all so much for coming. So who is from interstate? Hands up. Wow. Fantastic. And who flew here? Wow. Thank you very much for coming. Really, really appreciate it. So we've got a very, very big jam-packed day today. And so we'll get started. So for those of you who don't know me, I'll give you a quick background before we start. I'm a general practice registrar at the Gardens Medical Group, and I've got a very interest in lifestyle medicine, and I guess addressing the lifestyle problems that we're seeing, the chronic diseases with lifestyle, diet, and nutrition. So that is going to be the theme of what I'm going to be talking about today. And today I'll give you an intro, and then I'll be talking later on about visceral fat. So without further ado, let's get started. So what is the problem that we're dealing with today? Well, the whole reason why we're here is because the current approach isn't working. And what I mean by that is we've got unprecedented amounts of obesity, metabolic diseases, we've got infertility and reproductive issues, autoimmune diseases are increasing in prevalence, there's cancer, there's mood disorders, and there's autism and spectrum disorders and behavioral issues. So the problem is that the current approach that everyone is faced with is that there's actually an absence of an intent to cure these conditions. There is an overemphasis, in my opinion, on medications and surgical intervention, and there's an ineffectiveness of the current lifestyle, of current treatment paradigm in solving and treating lifestyle and chronic diseases. So I like to think about it like this. You can be dying, you can be surviving, and you can be thriving. Whereas most people, well, they're in the surviving stage, and mainstream medicine is incredibly effective to get you from that state of dying to surviving. What it can't do is get you to thriving, and to get to that state of thriving, you need optimal lifestyle. So where are, and have a think, I want everyone to have a think about where you are, but this is a critical distinction that we're making here. And if you're in a car accident or you need emergency surgery, then you do need a hospital. But what we can't do is we can't medicate ourselves to optimal health. So how do we know what lifestyle is optimal? Well, we have an idea, and we're guided by what is ancestrally appropriate. And what I mean by that is, how did our ancestors live? And how was their state of health? And what were they doing throughout their life and throughout their lifestyles? And aside from things like infectious diseases, they give us a critical insight into what our humans' evolved natural environment should be. So what did they have? Well, they had an unprocessed diet rich in animal products, which is ruminant herbivores and seafood. They had constant exposure to natural radiation from the sun. They had constant connection to the earth through bare feet. And they had a close-knit tribal interactions in social settings. So that is the ancestral lens, and that's what I want everyone to think about throughout this conference and throughout future conferences, because what is ancestrally appropriate will be healthy. What they didn't have, and this is a long list, they didn't have industrial agricultural practices. They weren't eating feedlot and confined animals. They weren't eating ultra-processed foods. There was no vegan or plant-based diets in our ancestral past. There weren't artificial sources of electromagnetic fields, and people weren't insulated from contact with the earth. And finally, we didn't have centralized bodies dictating what we should or shouldn't eat. This was self-evident. So what we can think about is that is peak performance. That is what we were, and look where we are now. The disconnect from our evolved human environment is what I believe is at the root cause of all the health problems we're seeing today. Back then, hunting was the chief source of gathering our food. Today, people are eating food that's grown in fields with monocropping and industrial agricultural techniques, including herbicides and pesticides. There's been a complete industrialization of agriculture and food production. So what we're doing, we're running several parallel, uncontrolled, long-term population-based experiments on a low-fat, high-carb, grain-based dietary guidelines, on replacing our naturally evolved animal fats with polyunsaturated seed oils, and by sitting indoors all day, being exposed to artificial light. These are some of the critical experiments that our society is putting ourselves through that I believe are contributing to chronic disease. So why is this conference called Regenerate? And the reason is because sustainable is not enough. Sustaining our current health status individually and as a population is not enough. People are sick. Sustaining our current soil and agricultural practices isn't enough because the current trajectory is further depletion. We actually need to regenerate these biological systems. And that is possible if we work in accordance with nature's biological blueprint. As you know, everything is interconnected. We can't disentangle human health from animal health and ecosystem health. We can't look at human health in isolation and simply medicate people without considering the impact that their environment and the environment of the animals that they're consuming is having on their health. And we can't ignore the effect of increasingly using antibiotics, herbicides, and other forms of chemical inputs into our ecosystem that has to support us and help us produce our food. So the pillars of Regenerate are basically three core tenets: the carnivore and animal-based diets, quantum and circadian health, and regenerative farming. And all of these are in accordance with our biological and evolutionary programming. So the aims of the Regenerate conference to help understand the fundamental drivers of disease and to promote the gold standard lifestyle solutions. It's to promote regenerative agriculture as a holistic solution to both human food sourcing and to ecosystem health. And it's to foster connections between people and like-minded people to accomplish these goals. And finally, what might we be able to achieve with this type of movement? Well, we want to encourage as many farmers as possible to implement chemical-free regenerative practices. We want to work towards the decentralization of the agricultural and food production systems. And we want to help as many people as possible achieve that thriving state of health with optimal diet and circadian rhythm. So if you think where you are, take a moment. Where are you? Are you thriving or are you just getting by? Well, you deserve to thrive, and each of you has the ability to live an optimally thrived life. And the purpose of today and future conferences will be giving you the tools to get to that state. I want to thank you all again for attending the first of what will hopefully be many Regenerate summits. And I like to think of events and conversations that we're going to have today as simple drops in a calm pond. And each of them, even though it's a single drop, have reverberating effects beyond today and into the future. And I'll just leave you with a final thought, which I think I'd encourage you to take into the rest of the talks today. And that is a really nice quote that I like by Rumi. He said, "Yesterday I was clever, so I wanted to change the world. Today I am wise, so I'm changing myself." Thank you.